to relaunch Cirque du Soleil as a startup business, but with a massive global brand and enough capitalization with some excited new owners was a dream come true.
Duncan Fisher, Chief Show Operations Officer at Cirque du Soleil. Today he oversees the entire worldwide portfolio of the company's touring and resident shows.
What would you think if I told you you run your business like a circus?
I mean, it's...
Yeah, exactly. This notion that the circus is chaos, that it's unorganized.
You have gone on a mission to dispel this notion.
We are one of the most organized companies in the whole world. Cirque du Soleil really rewrote the rules.
What is it really like?
On any given show around the world, there's about 130 people. 50 of them will be performers, and 80 of them are back of the house.
What's the key to making them a team?
For us, it's very simple. We're trying to entertain the world. I was with James Cameron after a show one time, and he said to me, but your shows, 1,000 years from now, somebody can still watch one of your shows and think it's incredible.
Thank you, James Cameron. A parting thought that you'd like to leave the listeners?
I generally open my speech by saying,
and welcome back to Lead the Team. What does it take to transform a childhood dream into a global leadership role at one of the world's most iconic entertainment companies? That's right, Cirque du Soleil. They expect to put on over 8,000 shows and sell 10 million to 12 million tickets this year. And Duncan Fisher's journey from a young gymnast in Leeds, England, to the chief show operations officer at Cirque du Soleil is nothing short of extraordinary. He was a state champion gymnast and member of the junior British team, and then already performing at elite levels by the time most kids were just learning the basics of gymnastics. And then he ran off as a teen to join the circus as an acrobat and eventually joined a circus company in North America. And then by 24, he transitioned from performing to managing show operations, a move that set the stage for a remarkable career behind the scenes. And over the years, Duncan has held pivotal roles, including producing major events like the Inventing Flight Festival and the Independence Day speech for President George W. Bush. And then in 2018, he joined Cirque du Soleil, and today he oversees the entire worldwide portfolio of the company's touring and resident shows, making him the first ex-performer in the C-suite since Guy, or I'll pronounce it correctly, Guy La Liberté. Wow. Duncan, let's roll. Welcome to Lead the Team, sir.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah. And that was a big intro, but I really wanted to lay the land for everybody because what a fun career and a fun business you are in. But let's start this out by telling us about the day that the Secret Service showed up at your event in Dayton.
Oh, wow. That was in 2003. As you just referenced, we did a speech for President Bush, and we were working on the 100th anniversary of the invention of flight, a festival to celebrate the invention of flight, which the Wright brothers obviously were from Dayton, Ohio. So that's where the major celebration was from. This is where I had my own production company, and I was hired by a company called MC Squared to produce this festival for 17 days to celebrate the 100th anniversary. And George Bush was scheduled to come and speak at the opening of the ceremony, which was the festival, which was the 4th of July. And on the 1st of July, we were getting ready. And we had a visit from the White House contingent to make sure everything was okay. And there was the Secret Service showed up, and basically every Tom, Dick, and Harry that had anything to do with this festival in the city of Dayton, the state of Ohio, there was 50, 60 people in this. There was the White House entourage and then the government entourage. And we walked around, I showed them the whole place where the stage was going to be, where he was going to make his speech. And at the end of this, there must have been 100 people standing around. And the leader of the Secret Service delegation said to me, he says, "Hey, can I have a quick word with you?" And he pulled me aside. I said, "Yeah, come on over here." And we kind of ducked to the side of the stage. And he just said, "I'm not bringing him here." I was like, "Ooh, okay, what do you mean?" And he says, there's no way. The way that this is set up with the way to get in, the way to get out, it's
Mm.
too difficult. I can't deal with this. We're not bringing him here. There's no way. He said, so we're going to have to tell everybody that. And the leader of the White House delegation, sorry, was with us, and he said, is there anything else that we can do? And I'm thinking, oh, my brain's going like this. And the guy at the Secret Service basically said, the only way we're going to bring him here is if he stays on the Air Force Base. So I'm like, okay, that can work because we had an event at the Air Force Base. We were doing a balloon launch at the Air Force Base as part of the festival. So I said, okay, we can figure something out and we can make it work at the Air Force Base. So we were here July the 1st. I'm being told that I have to create an event from scratch for obviously TV and 25 to 30,000 live people in an audience in 2 days for the president of the US on the 4th of July. So I'm like, okay. And they're like, okay, can you make it happen? Yeah, okay. Yeah. We can do it. So,
So you said yes. That was the appropriate response.
I said,
And
of course
then,
we can. No problem. And so we spent the next day calling every supplier that we knew to get all the equipment we needed, the staging, the seating, we had to put up bleachers, a stage, the video screens. We knew who to call, but it's like, okay, you got more? Can you send us something else? Everything came into Dayton on the next day, which is now July the 2nd. We started setting up and on the 3rd. The guys at the Air Force Base commander was amazing. The Secret Service worked with us. It was things like we were looking like we're pretty bare bones. We don't have much decoration here. So the Air Force Base commander says, well, I can bring you some stuff. So we brought an F-1 bomber on one side and and something else on the other side of the stage. We placed these planes. The Secret Service was building scaffolding towers to put snipers on top. And
wow.
because this is like 2003, it was right after 2000, 9/11,
Yeah,
not long.
9/11. So it was heightened
they were pretty
security.
serious about stuff. Anyway, so July the 3rd came along and we finished in the middle of the night on July the 3rd. Everybody had gone. And of course, during all this, I still had a team that was trying to get this festival ready to open on the same day that we'd been working on for 18 months.
Yeah, the main event that goes on for over 2 weeks.
Right. So
And this is
I'd
your
split,
side project is getting
exactly. I'd split the team up to work on this and to work on the festival. The opening ceremony of the festival happened on the night of July the 3rd. So I left the setup at the Air Force Base, went to the opening ceremonies where we had Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and John Glenn on the same stage to open the festival. I watched that, went back to the Air Force Base, and in the middle of the night, everything was done. And at probably 4 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch black. We're done. There's only me and one military policeman left who's there guarding what we're doing. And I was like, phew. And I stood on the podium that the president makes his speeches from. When they go out of the White House, the thing is so big and heavy, it's bomb-proof. He can get in it if there was a problem. At least this was 20 years ago. I don't know now, but and I stood on the podium on the lectern there, and I was like, man, I wish somebody could see me now. And the only thing I could think of was, you know what? My mom's up. I'm going to call my mom.
because she's in the UK. She's awake.
So I called my mom and I said, hey, Mom, you'll never guess where I am. She said, oh, where are you? I said, well, I'm standing on the stage where the president's going to give his speech tomorrow. And she's like, oh, that's nice, dear.
She's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to tell somebody bye.
Wow.
So that was that. And then the next day, here we come. Air Force One flies into the Air Force Base.
Cool.
They drive him from the plane to the stage. He goes on, he does his speech, gets back in the car on the plane, and off he goes. And it went off without a hitch, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, there's some lessons to be learned here about.
Yeah. What were the big lessons? I can think of about 100 potentially, but what are the big ones that really stuck with you?
I think the one of the first one was that the preparation that we had for the festival, first of all, was immaculate. We had, because if we'd have been scrambling to finish the festival, there was no way that we would have been able to take on this other thing. right? So
You
one of
had the
my old
capacity at that point
we had the capacity to
to
do
do
it.
it.
One of my old
Hmm.
mentors, not old, he's older than me, but he's not. He always used to say when we were planning things, it was always make sure you plan for shit happens. And you don't know
Yeah.
what that's going to be. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. You better have time for that.
But still, like,
And
build that into your expectation. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but
but
we know
something's
there's
going to
going to
happen.
be something.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
So
hmm,
we always have that time, the time that we try to put in the bank. And if we can get ahead, we put some time in the bank, just like you would put money in the bank. We always, when we're doing events, we always try to
hmm,
put time in the bank because you never know what's going to happen.
hmm. I
So
like
we
that.
did that, and that allowed us to be able to have the capacity to do this. And then it's one of those things where you could be so overwhelmed by it, like, oh my God, we got to set up for the president in 2 days. Okay, but it's like, okay, break it down, simplify it.
Hmm,
You do this little bit, you do this little bit, I'll do this little bit, and small steps, and we can get there. We know who to call. They know what equipment to bring. We know we can set up things. We need a few more people. Again, we know who to call. So
hmm.
no panicking, break it down, small steps, and we can accomplish this.
Love
So I
that.
think
So
those are
it's an
the
overwhelming, it was an overwhelming moment, but you
yeah,
made it not overwhelming for your team because you were able to break it down into
right.
actionable steps because they were probably already exhausted. And they're
Hmm.
like, really? We're
Yeah,
doing it over here. But you're to break it down and that made it more manageable.
yeah, yeah. No, and it turned out great. It was an amazing thing. And at the end of the day, I was not even there. I was at the festival site and watched it on TV.
Are you serious? You're like, well, I was just standing there last night talking to my mom.
Yeah, and
Oh gosh.
so I was
So you
actually
didn't
at
get
the
to shake
opening of the
hands with
festival.
George W.
No, but he sent me a very nice letter, which hangs on my wall in my office now, saying thank you very much. So
Okay.
that was okay.
It's nice to have a little gratitude.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
man. Well, what a cool story to open this up with. And thank you for hitting that out of the gate like that, sharing that because leaders need to think about these things and who better to learn from one of the best event and show companies in the world.
Mm,
And what you shared are really universal lessons. And I love this idea about, hey, on your big projects, put time in the bank as you go
yeah,
along for a rainy day
yeah,
and or a new opportunity like you had. I mean, one, it was a bad situation, but what a huge opportunity to host
yeah,
the president of
absolutely.
the United States.
Yeah, it was great. And at the end of the day, everybody looked like superstars and felt like superstars for pulling it off. So it was great.
Well, I want to dive into your background, but before we
Sure.
get there, something that I came across on LinkedIn and I thought was so interesting that you wrote because the term circus is frequently used by a lot of people in the press as a metaphor for chaos and incompetence, like the leader coming in and saying, "You guys are you're running a circus around here." But you
Yeah.
have really gone on a mission to dispel this notion, and people can probably already hear why this is so near and dear to your heart. But share with us, what kind of like what's your perspective on that? And
Hmm.
what is it really like
Yeah.
running the top? I don't even know if you guys you really I mean, Cirque du Soleil is not really a circus, right? It's a lot more than just that
It's a lot more
experience.
than, I mean,
But
it is. It's obviously it comes from the circus background, but now Cirque du Soleil really rewrote the rules as far as performance goes
yeah,
and really created its own thing, which is called Cirque. But it's circus, it's theater, it's still incredible human performance at the end of the day, but it's wrapped in a massive spectacle of costumes and sets and storytelling, and so it is a bit different. But yeah, this whole notion came to me. I remember I was sitting on a flight coming home from Korea. So I had a long time to think about it too. And I was just scrolling and I saw an article in The Guardian from the UK newspaper. And it didn't just say something was a circus. The headline was, "We don't need any more Cirque du Soleil." So that really set me off because you see circus all the time. People say this is a circus, it's a political circus, this is a circus. But when somebody actually used our name of the company, I was like, okay, that's too far. That's too far.
hmm,
So I started pushing back and then I started thinking more and more about this. Just to finish that, I did push back. It was on LinkedIn, and I called the guy out who wrote the story. He apologized, and I invited him to the show in London, and we ended up meeting and talking about it. So it was a great
You're
story.
like, yeah.
And now
And
he's
here are two tickets. And
yeah,
let's see what you really think. Say it to my face.
that's
And he was
it.
cool.
Exactly. You'll find that on my LinkedIn as well. And a quick
Okay.
plug, any of your listeners that want to follow what I'm saying, please follow me on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
but
good stuff.
yeah, so we ended up as friends, and he's a big supporter of Cirque du Soleil now. But it inspired me to start thinking and talking about the notion of what a circus is. And you're absolutely right. I generally open my speech by saying, what would you think if I told you you run your business like a circus? And of course,
Yeah.
as soon as you say that, people will be like, well, yeah, it's an insult, or it's
Yeah.
like, it's chaos, it's confusion, it's incompetence. And the thing is that the circus is so far away from that. We are one of the most organized organizations in the whole world. But when you think about it, we have people from all over the world. We recruit from everywhere for the performers, for the technicians, the people that work here. We have employees from everywhere.
Hmm.
And when they're on the shows, whether they're on the stage or setting up the massive tents and the rigging, they're literally trusting each other with their lives, like literally. And that is not taken lightly. It's the most serious thing that we look at. The biggest thing that we want is we want everybody to go home at the end of the day. And that takes
Hmm.
planning. It takes organization to make the shows happen. And it's not just the performers you see on stage. It's the riggers that are holding people with the winches and the cables. It's the
Hmm.
timing of the lights going on and the lights going off so that people can see what they're doing. We're looking after thousands and thousands of audience members that come in and have to come into our facilities and leave
Yeah.
safely. And then we pack everything up in 3 days into 100 trucks or sea containers, move it sometimes across the world, set it all up again, and do a show. So the planning and the logistics around that, we just did a documentary. We flew a show from Sydney, Australia to New York City. It took us a week to get from one side of the
Hmm.
world to the other and set up and doing shows in New York City. So this notion that the circus is chaos, that it's unorganized. So I've really been pushing back on that, and I talk about how we operate with the teams that have chemistry. We
Hmm.
operate with creativity, and then at the end of the day, all that results in amazing customer experience. So that's
Hmm.
been my message that I have been talking about a lot lately.
So when someone says, "Hey, you're running things around here like a circus," your goal is to have them say, "Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
are.
very much." And I want to raise with that.
Yeah,
Future
exactly.
promote me.
That's a
Well,
compliment. Yes.
so you already gave us a couple big ones from your days and the George Bush last minute deal. What are a couple other ideas that you think leaders could learn from the circus slash Cirque du Soleil in terms of how you're running things, how you're
Yeah,
doing it? And I got a couple other questions around that, but just take it any
sure.
direction you like.
Yeah, as I just said, like, I talk about chemistry, creativity, and customer experience. I think those are the
Hmm.
three things that we try and focus on a lot.
Yep.
When I talk about chemistry, I'm talking about the teams and how they work together and the way that we're set up to operate. And I'll be honest, I take a lot of this from General Stanley McChrystal's book, The Team of Teams.
Okay.
I
Yes.
think I
Great
think
book.
that's I think it's incredible, and that
Yep.
that mode of operating, it
Thanks
really
for sharing
fits
that.
us. It really fits us. And it's amazing how it's a very different end product, but the military and the circus is very similar in the way that we operate.
Is it true, speaking about this, like these teams? So you have multiple, I'll say, functions because you have the performers, but there's like everybody else associated with the show probably outnumber the performers
Yes,
because they've got to
correct.
keep it safe, keep it
Yeah.
flowing. And is it true too? I read that you have people from 20 different countries
More than
working on
that.
one show.
On one show, maybe, but across the whole company, maybe 50 different countries. We have people from everywhere.
So it's like a real multicultural, it is a legitimate global enterprise,
Yeah, absolutely.
not just the people coming, but inside. So you're having to tackle language differences. You're having to
Mhm.
tackle different operational perspectives that they bring because the people that are the artists that are performing, they don't speak the language of maintenance and stage lighting necessarily. And then you have the actual cultural differences. So what are
Yeah.
you doing to bring people together to work on these shows when there's so many differences to tackle?
Yeah, we have a quite an extensive integration process. When people who are, not speaking the same language or serious cultural differences or even acrobatic differences, you can take a gymnast who's a fantastic Olympic gymnast, but you still have to train them to be on the stage. It's a bit of a different tact. So we bring everybody here to Montreal.
Hmm.
And we work on what they're going to do in the show here, probably before they go out to a show, or if we're creating a new show, what they're going to do on the show. And here we have a big integration process that goes from we have a bank of interpreters that speak every single language that exists that we
Hmm.
can bring in as necessary. A lot of times, if we bring, for example, a Chinese acrobat doing something, they may well come with a family member or somebody from their gym, their organization, their school, who
Hmm.
acts as a interpreter for them and travels with them. So we do have that as well. But then they'll come here. We'll make sure that they get a bank account opened up so we can pay them. We'll make sure that they have all the necessary working permits to go to the different countries that they're going to go to, that they
Hmm.
have the proper social security numbers if they need it, that this whole integration of being able to work in our society is quite extensive. They learn how to put on their makeup to do the show. They learn which way it is to the kitchen to eat, which way it is to the toilets. It's all these different things that
Yeah.
they have
Okay.
to learn. And so it takes a
Hmm.
while for somebody who's coming from another culture to learn. Obviously, it's not the same for everybody, but yeah, we've been doing this for 40 years now, so we've gone pretty good at
Well,
that.
what's the key to making them a team? So you kind of get them integrated into I like the Cirque
Hmm.
company culture, so to speak. But then
Yeah.
you get to make this other leap of, okay, look, you're going to trust your life
Hmm.
to this stage person over here who you've never met before, doesn't even speak your language. How do
Right.
you get them to play well together? Work
But
effectively.
well, it's them, but as you say, it's not only them. It's the teams that build the tents, that do the logistics. There's
Hmm.
on any given show around the world, there's about 130 people. 50 of them will be performers, and 80 of them are back
Okay.
of the house, as we
Hmm.
call it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they're either stage technicians or they could be front of the house, which is popcorn selling and merchandising, hospitality, and they could be in the office doing the HR person or the lodging person. So it's not just when we talk about stuff, it's really not just the artist, it's everybody. And as we travel around the world, we pick up more and more people who want to work with us. So what's critical for developing the chemistry within the teams, no matter what piece of the product people are working on, is having that common purpose, having a
Hmm.
clearly established goal of what we're trying to accomplish, which for us is very simple. We're trying to entertain the world. And when you get behind that, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to do that to the best of our ability, and while we're doing it, we're going to have a little bit of business as well, which what a lot of us focus on. But for the people
Yeah.
who are on the road, their mission is to entertain the world.
Okay.
So it's
Hmm.
a very clear purpose to get behind,
Hmm.
and then you can have that shared understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish, what it is, why we're trying to do it, and the values that we have as a company to do it by. So whether you're on the stage or whether you're making a deal with the local hotel for everybody to stay in, you're still like, okay, I need a good deal. I'm going to bring these 130 people. Well, is it a nice area for them to stay in? Do they have a store here? How are they going to get to the site? All those things that go along with it, the whats, the whys, the values. And then we find that as everybody buys into those, the purpose and the understanding of what we're doing, they start to trust each other. And when the teams trust each other, that's when you have that chemistry. That's when
Hmm.
a Chinese person can allow somebody from Brazil to catch them as they dive into their arms, even though they can't talk to each other. It's like they know that they're going to be okay. Um, and on the
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
everybody is wants the best for for the company, for the mission, and to entertain the world. And then on the offstage side, we really lean into the notion of empowered execution. We
Hmm.
want because I'm here in Montreal, but the sun never sets on Cirque du Soleil. Like we are currently performing in Hong Kong. We have a
Hmm.
show that's on its way to Australia right now. So we work all the way around the clock. So while I'm sleeping, there's a show happening in Hong Kong. So I can't solve every problem. We have to push
Hmm.
the decision making and the empowerment into the organization to the people who run the shows on the ground. And we can only do that if they share our vision of what they're trying to do, and we know and they know the values that we're trying to work by, so that for 90% of the time they're going to make the right decision in what they do.
What do you do to reach them? So they're on the road, like you get them in Montreal on your home turf, and
Mhm,
it sounds like you guys have got that dialed in.
mhm.
But then they go to Hong Kong and they're kind of off by themselves in this giant city,
Yep.
like they're with their own people from the show. But you just talked about your leadership vision and what you're trying to do. How do you reach them as the chief show officer to make sure the vision's clear, they're remembering it, and it's being
Mhm.
infused throughout their day?
Yeah, yeah. Look, we talk about it a lot. We regularly share the vision and we have meetings. Look, now we're with Zoom and Teams and the other video conferencing applications that we use. It's much easier than it used to be. So now we have regular touch points, even with people on the other side of the world, to make sure that everybody's aligned with what we're doing. I I have huddles, just management huddles every day, every single day. I have one in the morning and I have one in the evening. One at the beginning of the Eastern time day and at the end of the Eastern time day, because the guys on the other side of the world are just,
Okay.
beginning to start their day. And it's really just 5, 10 minutes. What do you got today? What meetings have you got? What are you looking for? Did anything important happen that everybody needs to know? So that we have that regular check-in. And it also like, oh, Jimmy, I need to talk to you about so and so. Hang on for a minute after this, or can I call you at 10 o'clock? Or and it just aligns everybody. Everybody knows
Okay.
where everybody is in the world, what are they working on today, and if they need something, it's a good time to ask. That's just my management team. And then on a every couple of weeks, we have what we call the operations and information sharing meeting, again, straight out of the Team of Teams book,
Yeah.
where we get anybody can come, anybody can join, but basically it's the majority of it is managers, but it's going to be anywhere from 150 to 200 people around the world will join the call, and we'll go through
Every
in
day, or is
no,
that
every 2 weeks,
every
every two
two
weeks.
weeks? That's
Yeah.
like a global gathering,
Yeah, a
and
global
you're
gathering
leading this yourself.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, either me or my vice president of
Okay.
operations will
Okay.
will lead this. We have three agendas. So it takes 6 weeks to get through everybody. We do some of the shows, some of the departments, and then in 2 weeks' time, we'll go through some of the shows, some of the departments.
Yeah.
And it's really, okay, what's going on in your world? What's important for everybody to know? What's interesting? What help do you need? So it could be the tour director for Allegria will get on and say, hey, we're currently in Milan. We're doing this, that, and the other. We have these PR events. We're getting ready to move to Vienna, and I need to call so and so. So it's information for everybody, and it's also a time to ask for help. And we try to solve problems live if there is any. So we have this constant communication between not just between the managers but the whole
Hmm.
organization, so that there's this shared understanding of what's going on, and people don't feel, oh my God, I'm stuck out on the other side of the world by myself, and there's nobody to help me. That's not the case. And these are all now recorded so people can watch them later if they need to.
Yeah. So good to get people, like you said the word shared understanding. And this is how the best in the world do it. But one thing that I take is, hey, you're very intentional about it. You're not just
Mm.
leaving these meetings up to chance. It's on a cadence. People are aware,
Yep.
they come, they learn. You're
Yep.
listening to them as much as they're listening to you, and you're creating this shared understanding of the priorities and
Hmm.
who you are as an organization. It just sounds
Yeah.
really, really cool in terms of how it's working. Is there how thinking back to COVID and
Yeah.
how that Cirque du Soleil and every entertainment organization in the world had very difficult circumstances. How did you guys survive that? And
Yeah.
how have you coming out of that? You guys have done some big things. So maybe share a little bit behind the scenes on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So COVID was the worst time and the best time of my life, or career anyway. When COVID hit, we actually had 11, I think, shows that were running around the world. And of course, we had to close them. It was the worst thing ever to say to 1,500 people that were out there on the road, okay, the show's closed. You have to go home. And of course, it's not just as easy as saying, okay, go home. We had all these tents are set up, the shows are set up. Some of them are halfway between one city and another.
Oh, yeah.
So we started to take everything down, pack everything away. We put equipment into warehouses in Sydney, in Amsterdam, in Houston, here in Montreal, packed everything away, started sending everybody home. We had everything packed away, approximately 600 trucks of equipment all around the world. Got all that packed away, got everybody home. So as I say, 1,500 people were out there on the road, got everybody home
Hmm.
within the space of 10 days. And uh, as big as we are, that also creates the problem. We went from $1 billion company to a $0 company overnight.
Yeah, because you can't have a show, right?
We had no
You're
shows.
like everybody buy a ticket for Zoom and watch what we can do, right? That wasn't
Nobody's
happening.
interested in that, right? So yeah, so and along with being the biggest company for shows, we have the biggest mortgage as well. So within a month, we had declared bankruptcy, and we went from 5,000 employees at the time. There was about 100 of us that stayed, and as I said, that was the absolute worst thing that could ever have happened was to send all these people home and close all the shows. As I said before, our mission is to entertain the world. We couldn't do any of that. It was done, finished, over.
Yeah, the mission's in question at that point, right? You're
Right? Is
like,
it going to come back? We didn't know. Is this 2 weeks? Nobody knew, right? Is it 2 weeks,
yeah,
3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years? Who
yep.
knows what this is going to be? So so we were that was that so everything got closed down. I was one of the very lucky ones that was able to keep my job. Very few people in the entertainment business kept their jobs through COVID. So I was very lucky to be able to do that. So when I say it was the worst time ever, I was at least very lucky to have a job. And what I was doing was making settlements with suppliers, calling them up, saying, "Hey, I
Yeah.
can't pay you that, but I can pay you this." And the good news, of course, is that we have such a strong brand that there was no real danger of us ceasing to exist. Even though we did declare bankruptcy, there was always going to be a path to either new ownership or a way out when it was time.
Because the brand
So
had so much inherent value that you'd built up over 40 years. It
exactly,
was
yeah.
almost like your protective umbrella
Exactly.
financially. Yeah.
So even though we had zero revenue at that time, there was people lining up at the door to say, "Okay, let's have a look at this."
Yeah.
And we ended up in November by the end of that year, we had a new ownership group, and they recapitalized us to be able to start going. And from that point, I would say it was the best time of my business career because to relaunch
Hmm.
Cirque du Soleil basically as a startup business, but with a massive global brand and
Hmm.
enough capitalization with some excited new owners was a dream come true, right?
Because you had like
So
you had like a green field, like a
yeah,
blank
exactly.
canvas to paint
It was
on,
like,
so to
okay,
speak.
what are we going to do? And at the time I was just in charge of the touring shows. I wasn't running the resident shows. There was somebody else in Vegas running those. So I was just dealing with the touring shows. But we put a plan together to bring back 8 of the touring shows within less than 18 months. Now, again, these shows
Smells
are
like a lot.
if
A lot.
even Guy Liberté, who you mentioned earlier, said you'll
Yeah.
never get them out that quick. I said, yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. And he's just an advisor now. He's not associated with the company, but he was here at that time to have a look. And I said, no, no, we can get this done. And the teams did, and we did it by essentially by decentralizing everything and pushing this empowered execution, as I talked
Yeah.
about earlier. But
So
we
that wasn't necessarily a focus before COVID, but you needed to go to that new leadership strategy of empowerment more
I
because you need to
think
get these shows out.
realistically, it started when we shut down. That 10-day period of shutting down, that's
Hmm.
where it started. That's where it really started in my mind about
Okay.
how are we going to do this? And we had a meeting every single day. With the operations and information sharing meeting that's now every 2 weeks during the shutdown of COVID was every day because things were happening so quick. It's like, okay, where are you
Right.
at? What do you
Okay.
need? What can we send you? What people do you need on the phone? So we were doing it every day. And that was really before that just came
You're like,
by the
we got to do this. You're
circumstances.
not, wait a minute. We're able to do a
Yeah.
lot when we're talking all the time.
Yeah. And
And
then during COVID, I read the team of teams and I was like, oh, we were doing that. So let me do more of it, you know? So that was super cool. And we got the shows back out. Alegria actually was the first one that we relaunched. It was incredibly emotional to put the show back on stage. And we
love
went
that
from
show.
there and we relaunched 8 touring shows in the space of 18 months.
How, I mean, it's wow. I can see that. It was the worst thing in your career and then the best thing of your career. And it seems like you got to have every experience of a leader all within that time period. All
I
within,
think so. Yeah. I think so.
oh man, oh, that's so cool. And I've got to ask you, and I want to ask about your background some more, but I'll ask you about, I have not seen the Lucia show,
Mhm.
but I've been watching videos about the Rain Curtain
Yeah.
and seeing this. And for those listeners, you got to see the video or go see the show of this thing. Where did this, and I've also, the Ka, is it Ka Theater?
Car. Yeah.
The Ka Theater. A lot of you guys have been on the cutting edge of live performances. So the
Yes.
Rain Curtain, the Ka Theater, these things. What is it like to be an operations executive in an organization that's so focused on, I guess, advancing technology in terms of live events? So maybe give us a little bit of
Mm.
breakdown on Ka and the Rain Curtain and these ideas and how it plays in
Yeah.
operationally for everybody.
Yeah, so when we start talking about the on-stage creativity and then the operations of it, we're always pushing the envelope, whether it's with the acrobatic notion of what we're doing, that's the beginning. Every show is based on incredible human performance, right? That's what Cirque du Soleil is about. But then we take that incredible human performance and we wrap it in the most amazing technology of the day when that show is created. So the theatrics around the show is whatever, whether it's lighting, whether it's video, whether it's special effects with the water, the stage movements at Car is all automated. Those things were absolutely cutting edge when those shows were created. And that's not to take away from the human performance, it's really to enhance it.
Hmm.
And we do talk about technology a lot, but I was with James Cameron backstage after a show one time, and he said to me, he said, when we create movies, we're doing it with technology, and we have no idea in 5 years' time what that technology is going to look like. What am I going to be working with in 5 years' time? I don't know. It's going to be something incredible, and we're going to make more incredible movies with that technology. He says, but your shows, he says, 1,000 years from now, somebody can still watch one of your shows now and think it's incredible because of the human aspect of it. Um,
Oh, cool.
so
Thank you,
that was
James
something.
Cameron. That,
Sorry.
I said, thank you, James Cameron. That wasn't, I said, you're like, wow, can you please say that into the microphone, James, so we can share that
Yeah.
with our,
Yeah.
that's incredible for a legendary, iconic movie director
Yeah.
that have shared that about one of your live performances, man.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's wow.
And so we do use technology, but our performances are all about that human aspect. And as we create these performances, we in operations are very implicated in the creation of them because you can't just let creative people run away with whatever they want to do because it might not work in
Yeah.
operations. So
It
we
might be
have to
insanely
be.
expensive too.
Yeah, exactly. It has to work from a business sense and it has to work from a practical sense. So we're very involved in what the shows are. We try not to get involved, if you will, in the creative aspect, the story aspect of it, but the physical, how many people is this going to take to operate? How much money is this going to require every show to recreate? How many trucks is it going to take to move? So all that has to be figured in when we're creating a show to make sure that it works from a business perspective as well as a creative perspective. So it's very, there's a lot that goes into it and a lot of people
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, this rain curtain, 100,000 liters of water, and the people watching are not getting soaked, which I don't understand how that even happens.
That's it. And you
Better,
got to remember that it's happening somewhere in a tent in a parking lot too. You kind of lose that. Once you get into the theater, you forget that you're in a tent in a parking lot somewhere.
yeah, it's like a whole.
You're in Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm in Charleston, but
Oh, in Charleston. Okay.
the first show I saw was in Atlanta,
Okay.
in
Because
a parking lot, and it was Allegria with the tent, and it is like
yeah,
going into another world.
yeah, because Lucia is going to Atlanta for Christmas.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be at Atlantic Station. So you have to go down and see
Maybe
it.
we'll have to go over and bounce out there.
Yeah.
Gosh, so many questions, not enough time. But I gotta, so let's cycle back to your story. Take it anywhere, any highlights you want to give us, but clearly you were pretty darn good at gymnastics as a kid. And I don't know how you got into that, but you apparently were able to do this really well. And then you run off to join the circus, literally, and you say, "Hey, I'm not gonna pursue, I guess, being a gymnast. I'm becoming an acrobat." And then you made this launch into the operation side. So how does all that tie together in terms of this?
Yeah, so my mom was the teacher at the elementary school, and when one of her colleagues said that they were going to start a gymnastics class, I got volunteered.
Okay.
And I was
Thanks,
seven
Mom.
years old.
Yeah.
I was
Eh,
7 years old at the time, and I was like, okay, Duncan can do it. He can go try. So I did it, and it turned out I wasn't so bad. And I did compete internationally for the junior British team. I don't think I would ever have made the Olympic squad. So when I was close, but not quite there. And when somebody said to me, "Hey, do you want to come and get paid for doing acrobatics?" I was like, "Oh, okay, I can go with that." So we did. I joined this act that was a five-man comedy tumbling and trampoline act,
Okay. How old were you at
and
the time when you got
I
into
was
that?
19,
Okay.
18, 19, yeah.
Okay.
And we did some cabarets, casinos around Europe, and then we got a contract with the Tarzan Zabini International Circus, which sounds very grand, and it's over here in North America, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Cirque du Soleil. It was spit and sawdust and lions and tigers and
Oh,
bears
old school.
and old school.
Yeah.
Everybody does everything. And basically, the day that we arrived, we hooked up with the show in Saskatchewan, in Canada, in the prairies, in the fields somewhere. And basically, it must have been almost the first day we were there. Tarzan, who really is, his name really is Tarzan, and he owns the show. He said, "Do you guys want to make some extra money?" So we're like, "Of course." I'm 20 years old. I'm broke. Of course, I want to make some extra money. So it was okay. Start loading the truck. Start learning how to put the tent up. Start
Hmm.
getting things done. So we were performing in the show and also helping to move the show from city to city. Now, this setup was about as big as the ones that we have at Cirque du Soleil. Still had 2,400 seats, but no frills. It was just a tent and some seats. That was it. There was none of the stuff that we have. And a Cirque du Soleil show moves probably every 2 or 3 months. With Tarzan's show, we move twice a week.
Oh.
So, so we got a lot of practice very quickly. And after about 6 months, I was actually in charge of putting the tent up. I certainly wasn't an expert by then, but by default, I had sort of got in charge of putting up the tent. So I would be doing my acrobatics, my act during the week. And then on Sunday night, it was like, okay, here we go, overalls on, and let's take down the tent.
Nice.
So, and over the four or so year period that I was with Tarzan, we stayed to do the act. We ended up putting a new act together so that we could actually stay longer because he wanted us to move the show more than anything. So we put a new act together, and I probably moved that show more than 200 times in that space of 4 years. So I got a lot of practice very quickly at moving circuses. to the point where I was offered a job by a new show being created in Atlanta, coincidentally. And they only wanted me to do the operations. They asked me if I would come and take the job to find them a tent, buy the tent, put it up, tour the tent for them. And so I had this decision to make. Do I want to be
Wow.
an acrobat, or do I want to be an operations manager? And like I've kind of done every time there's a decision to make, it's like, well, can I come back if it doesn't work? And the answer was, yeah, I can. So let's go and try it. The same as when I left England to come to America. If it doesn't work, I'll just go back. It's all right. I'll go try it. So I was like, okay, let me
Hmm.
give this a shot. And sure enough, it worked out. And that was the Universal Circus out of Atlanta. I joined them when they were being created in 1995.
Hmm.
And I stayed with that show for 7 years. We built it into a very successful organization, still going today. And yeah, so I got into the operations and stuck with it. So the whole the management aspect, logistic aspect, leadership aspect of that was very appealing to me, and I really leaned into it and went from there.
How so many lessons in there. One of those I'm taking away is like your idea of, hey, I'm going to try this, and it's not an irreversible course for me, and it's
Yeah,
worth the risk. It sounds like that's been a guiding principle for you. Was
yeah.
there was there something else in that? Like you had already tried the traveling and doing the operations of the circus. Did you find something additionally meaningful in that than just doing the performing, or did it give you some additional energy
Uh,
spark? What was it?
I think it really interested me. I mean,
Yeah.
you know it's, as I said before, it's complicated, right?
Hmm.
None of this is easy. So, and the engineering behind putting up a tent and not having it fall down or blow down in the wind, the anchoring systems that we use in the ground, there is so much to learn about. Um, and although I didn't complete university or school, it wasn't that I couldn't have. I could have gone back and done that.
Yeah.
So I didn't, but I kind of learned on the job. So for me, it was a lot of learnings. It's like, oh wow, how does this work? And then planning the moves for I'm 20 something years old and I'm in charge of 100 people who are going full speed doing different things.
Yeah.
So I was learning leadership on the fly. I was learning engineering on the fly. I was learning planning and execution and everything that goes with it. So it was super interesting for me. And I think that's what just kept me going for so long. And then at some point it was like, okay, here I am.
Well,
I'm not going back to
it
performing
seems
now.
yeah, it seems like you're a person who you permit your like you give yourself permission to pursue your curiosity,
Yeah,
even at a young
absolutely.
age. And then what I hear is, Ben, I got to this point where I had to make a decision. I was still curious. I'm going to move more into operations. Is this an irreversible path? No, I can go back to the UK. I
Mhm.
can go back to performing if I want to,
Yeah,
and I can go back to university if I want to.
yeah.
And I think a lot of leaders all of us could really benefit from that life advice in general.
Yeah,
Um,
and it kept going and going. At some point, as I say, I started my own business. Same thing. I can always go back and be an employee if I want, and I did. And so it's always been like that. So yeah, I think that's really good.
well, Duncan, I'm not even through halfway through my questions, and we're out of time. So I'm going to leave you the last. Uh, is there a question that I didn't ask you that you'd like to dive into here, or a parting thought that you'd like to leave the listeners?
There was one story that I had lined up that I
Cool.
think has
Let's hear
been
it.
critical in my development. And when I was at the Universal Circus there, I was working with a gentleman called Cedric Walker, who launched the Universal Circus. And I was with him one night. We were in Miami and we were taking down the show. We were loading out the show. And he's one of those guys where he's totally hands-on, way more hands-on than an owner should be. He shouldn't have even been there, but he was there helping me loading tent poles onto a truck. And I was mad with him because he hadn't given me a promotion that I felt that I deserved. I was in charge of the tent, and he'd just promoted somebody to the director of operations position that I thought I should have. And he said to me, just very matter of factly, when I finally got the nerve to confront, because I was mad. I was like, okay, okay, how come he got the job and I didn't? And he just said, very matter of factly, because you didn't teach anybody to do your job yet. And that has absolutely stuck with me my entire career. Because when I first started, when I was with Tarzan, even the old school circus mentality, and I was told this by people there, don't tell anybody, don't show anybody. There's not many people know how to put up these tents. So don't you go showing anybody because then you're going to have your job forever. Well, that's the curse because I would have still had that job that I had 30 years ago if I hadn't. So when Cedric told me that, he told me, I can't give you a promotion because you haven't taught anybody how to do your job yet. It really changed the way I thought 180 degrees.
Hmm.
And I became a teacher that day. And I think from every step of the ladder, one of the most important things that I've done is make sure that my team, my direct reports, at some point are going to be able to replace me. And it's not a threat of losing a position or somebody's going to take your job. It is the path to the next step for yourself. And I think that if anybody asks me what is the most important lesson that you've ever learned, that was it.
And in one story, you revealed the key to getting promoted. Duncan, thank you. This has been an absolute blast, and I think our listeners are going to have a ball with it. Thanks for giving us your time today. It's fun.
No problem. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Ben.